Good morning. Well, I wouldn't normally film on a Sunday, but many people have sent this to me, and I thought, well, I've got to address this. This is in the Telegraph. This is running an electric car is twice expensive as a petrol one. A return trip from London to Penzance costs £148 for electric vehicles, compared with £77 for petrol cars, as prices at roadside chargers surge, writes the Telegraph. The Telegraph. Electric cars are up to twice as expensive as petrol or diesel cars to run. New figures have suggested running an EV can cost 24 pence per mile, while a diesel vehicle is around 12.5 pence. It costs as much as 80 pence per kilowatt an hour to charge an EV using a rapid or ultra rapid device on the roadside, according to data from the app ZapMap. Now, regular Geoff Buys Cars viewers and most YouTube viewers will know this. We know that charging at home is cheap. We know that if you have solar panels and if you have one of these late night electricity things and you've got a charging point at home, then you're basically sweet if you're doing local journeys in an EV. But anyone that has been watching my YouTube channel or the MacMaster's YouTube channel or many other YouTube channels will know that public charging is indeed the problem. As I said, we have done 4 trips across the UK now, and every single time the diesel or indeed the petrol car came out cheaper, apart from when we were in Europe. In Europe, the situation is different. But when we did John O'Groats to Land's End, it cost the electric car twice as much as it cost me in a diesel. And today, the Telegraph is catching up. Slower chargers cost 16.4 pence per mile. This is double the average diesel car, which can do 43 miles per gallon, resulting in a cost of 12.5 pence per mile at current prices. A typical petrol car costs 14.5p per mile, according to the analysis. So they're talking about a return journey from London to Penzance costing £148 in an electric car using rapid chargers, compared with £77 in a diesel car and £89 using a petrol. I reckon I could do it cheaper in one of my 30-year-old diesel cars that is better on fuel as well, because of course we seem to have gone backwards in fuel economy, and manufacturers no longer seem to be focusing on fuel economy as one of the things that they focus on in order to sell cars. Too busy installing screens and tracking software. Even drivers who use slower public chargers, the threshold is 50 kilowatt hours of power, allowing a full recharge in 30 minutes, are paying more per mile than petrol and diesel drivers. There's a 40% increase in the number of rapid or ultra rapid charging stations across Britain, bringing the total to 12,500. However, recent figures show that sales of electric cars have significantly slowed. We know this. I've talked about this on the channel. There's been a big article that's come out about Germany. Sales of electric cars in Germany right now are down 69%. Fiat have recently announced that they are going to take a break from making the electric Fiat 500 because sales are so slow. Volkswagen are in an absolute mess because of what they've done with their investment in electric vehicles. They've recently announced that they're going to be investing in a new petrol engine. So there's a lot of money that Volkswagen are now diverting from electric back to petrol. And it's the same across the board for all the manufacturers. They've all over-invested in EVs, thinking that people are going to jump straight to them. The people are not buying them, and the manufacturers are now panicking. The article then goes on to show us a survey. They have a simple question. It's a yes or no. It says, would you buy an electric car? 156,000 people have answered this survey, and at the time of making this video, it is 85% for no and only 15% for yes, which funnily enough is roughly around about the numbers of fleet sales in brand new cars. Obviously, we know that fleet users are being heavily incentivized to buy EVs. That's who's buying the EVs brand new. They're all business users buying them because the government has incentivized them to do so. And when those cars move into the second-hand market, there is nobody that wants them, which is why the prices are crashing. So businesses are buying new EVs every 3 years, and when they get dumped onto Auto Trader, nobody wants them. So they're getting parked up on airfields. Because what do you do? What do you do if you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of EVs that you cannot sell? You can drop the price and they won't sell. You can put balloons up on the dealership and they won't sell. You can give a free teddy bear with every EV. You can't force people. You cannot hold a gun to someone's head and force them to buy an EV if they don't want one. People are quite happy to go for hybrids, but not full electric in the second-hand market. EVs account for 17.2% of all new registrations since the beginning of 2024, so only 17% of new cars are fully electric. That's a decrease from 18.7% in the latter half of 2022. So EV adoption, we've kind of reached peak EV adoption now. People they've seen them, they've got them, they know them, and now they know that they don't want them. According to analysis, rapid and ultra-rapid chargers currently cost EV drivers 24p a mile, sort of repeating yourself there in the article. Mike Hawes, the chief executive of the Society of Motor Manufacturers, the SMMT, told The Times, "It's tough out there. Levels of demand are much, much softer." Levels of demand are softer. That is marketing speak for nobody wants them. We're trying everything, but nobody wants them. Sales of electric cars in Europe are performing even worse. Figures are showing that registrations of EVs are down 44% in August. And as I said, Germany just published an article, 69% down in Germany. At-home charging is normally significantly cheaper than using public points. However, a large number of households in the UK, almost half, live in either terraced properties or flats, meaning they cannot use a driveway or garage to allow charging at home. Not that you'd want to charge your car in your garage anyway, even if you are one of these people that's got a big double garage and you put your charging point in your garage. An interesting one recently, Jaguar issued a statement saying, "We advise that you do not charge your," I think it was even park, "do not charge your Jaguar I-Pace inside a building because it might catch fire, and absolutely don't charge it inside a building because it would catch fire." So why would you take the risk when you go to the dealer? Why would you take the risk if you can have a hybrid or a straight petrol? I'm not saying that petrols are straight. I'm not saying anything about any of that sort of gender stuff. You cannot talk about that on YouTube. But if you just want a straight petrol, you don't need to worry about where you park it or where you charge it. But if you're going to get if you're going to get a full battery electric vehicle, a BEV, then you've got to think about where you're actually going to park and charge it. Tom Groot, founder of the electric car scheme, said, "We need to keep stimulating demand with incentives and supporting consumers in making the switch." Why? Why do we need to do that, Tom Groot? Why should we stimulate demand? Because that's just going to come from the taxpayer's pocket. And why do we need to support consumers to make the switch? In the old days, right, and a lot of people will quote this when they're talking about the EV versus petrol argument, a lot of people will reference the time when the sort of petrol car replaced the horse. And part of the reason why people reference that is because they like to say that, oh, well, the electric car is just the same as when the petrol car came along and suddenly everybody realised that the horses were extinct. But the problem is, when the petrol car came along, yes, the network needed to be put in, i.e. the petrol stations, but everything else was better. Mostly because you didn't have giant piles of disease-causing manure in every street from all the horses. So the petrol car came along and people's lives and livelihood improved. It became easier to live with a car than it did with a horse. That's not what has happened with the electric car movement. The electric car hasn't come along and everybody's just gone, brilliant, that's much better, I'll buy one. Because if that was the case, then we wouldn't be making these videos and we wouldn't be having these conversations, and instead you'd be watching me test drive the latest EV because I would think that it was fantastic. But that's not what's going on. I find it hilarious when people bring up the whole horse thing. Anyway, Tom Groot says we need to stimulate demand, which means putting taxpayer money into car manufacturers to help sell them, and support consumers in making the switch. Supporting consumers in making the switch probably just means more government-funded propaganda like the Fully Charged Show and Quentin Wilson making YouTube videos saying that people like me are crazy spreaders of misinformation. Thanks for that, Quentin, and the Fully Charged Show. I think most of the misinformation is coming from your channels, to be totally honest. The fact that people who charge at home pay less VAT than those who use public chargers is unfair. So there's no VAT when you charge at home, and Tom Groot is saying that what we should do is remove the VAT on the public chargers. But then why is that fair for the people who are paying all of the fuel duty? You know, most of what we pay when we put a litre of fuel in goes directly to the government. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? It is a difficult one when you're trying to sell a substandard product that nobody actually wants. There's a pressure on the government to consider cutting VAT on electric car sales or exempt electric cars from the new luxury car supplement. Obviously, there's a new tax that's come in that's going to hit cars over £40,000, which, to be honest, is most cars these days because cars have got so damn expensive. The supplement promises to impose a higher rate of road tax on cars that cost more than £40,000. That's exactly what I just said. Expected to impact 2/3 of electric cars. 2/3 of electric cars cost more than £40,000. The only thing that this is going to do is benefit China when the raft of cheap electric vehicles come over. So good. Once again, we are going to end up putting money in the pockets of China, who are putting up, well, they're building quite a lot of coal-fired power stations right now. The Chinese love a coal-fired power station. In Britain, we're trying to do our best to save the planet, so we've shut down our nuclear power stations and our coal power stations, and instead we're going to buy electric cars from a country that's building more coal power stations. Welcome to Net Zero. It makes no sense. Let's just have two comments because they're from pro-EV people, so let's deal with those directly in the video before we have to argue it out in the comments on the video. Comment number one, this is complete bull. This is only the case if you charge away from home. If you charge at home, then you pay approximately 6 pence per mile compared with 20 pence a mile versus petrol or diesel in a 2-litre car. Oh, and no road tax. Servicing costs are half the price and twice the interval of diesel or petrol. Who writes this rubbish? Yes, that is absolutely correct. If you own an EV, and even better, if you've managed to get someone else to pay for your EV, i.e. it's a company car, and if you can charge it at home on a subsidised tariff, and if you don't drive your car far enough that you need to charge publicly, and, as we'll see in the second comment, if you have solar panels, which probably cost you £30,000 to install, then you are better off than everybody else. Well done. So if you've been able to afford your £40,000 plus electric car, and you can add to that your £25,000 plus solar panel install, then well done. You are saving the planet just by the virtue of the fact that you've got more money than other people. But if you are in the lower echelons of the income in the UK and you run or drive a sub £5,000 petrol or diesel car, you are destroying the planet because you can't afford to run a car that would save the planet. Makes sense, doesn't it? Another comment, most people do less than 25 miles per day, so home charging is the norm for EV owners. And since EVs achieve from 3 to 5 miles per kilowatt of electricity, then a total domestic cost of 35 pence per kilowatt hour, that equates to about 9 pence per mile. Much less if you have your own solar panels. Once again, somebody extolling the virtues of spending multiple tens of £1,000s on your house in order to get cheap charging in your car to save the planet. Brilliant. So there we have it. That is the first of a number of articles going around at the moment about the fact that EVs are more expensive than petrol. And as I said, I will have a full video coming, a full breakdown of the costs that it cost myself and Lee when we did our challenges. Because in our 5 challenges, EV versus internal combustion, you'll see in the video that the electric car is 18 hours and £11,000 worse off than the internal combustion one. Sorry for the long video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.